Mike Chioda joined Chris Jericho for his first ever podcast interview on Talk is Jericho this past week. Jericho was in the one and only match that Chioda ever wrestled in as a wrestler, which was back during the Invasion period. It was Jericho, The Rock, and Mike Chioda against the Dudley Boys and referee Nick Patrick. Bubba Ray stiffed him on a clothesline, but he got to deliver a people's elbow to Nick Patrick to pick up the win for his team. October 4th, 2001 episode of SmackDown, for those who want to go back and watch it. He spent 35 years working for WWE, 31 of those as a referee. He started out on the ring crew and worked his way up. Andre the Giant would ask him to go buy him liquor and French wine, but he was underage. So he would wait outside the liquor store for somebody to either come out or to go in. He would give them Andre's money and tell them what he was looking for. It was a very particular type of French wine, and buy it for him. He's lucky these people never took the money and ran. I wouldn't want to be the one to go back and tell Andre. But he's been part of some of the biggest matches in the history of that company, from 1, 2, 3 Kids upset on Raw of Razor Ramon back in 93, Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels in the main event of WrestleMania 14. After Earl Hebner had a brain aneurysm. That's the only reason Earl wasn't the referee for that match, and Chioda got the spot. And thankfully Earl recovered, and he came back, and all was well. Hulk Hogan and The Rock, WrestleMania 18. I would give Vince Russo's right arm to be in the ring during that match on that night, when Hogan kicked out from the rock bottom and he hulked up. Even just to be in the crowd, let alone in the ring. Rock's comeback match against John Cena in Miami at WrestleMania 28. The biggest WrestleMania buy rate of all time. Chioda was the referee for all of them. And then in April, he was unceremoniously released. He was fired, without even so much as an explanation or a reason given why. He says it took him by complete surprise. He was kind of ambushed by the whole thing, did not see it coming. He had surgery in October for a torn rotator cuff and a torn bicep. He was all healed up. He was ready to come back even at WrestleMania this year. He was all physically ready to go, all healed up, and he had even signed a brand new contract in March before WrestleMania with a bump in pay. And then on April 15th, he got a phone call telling him that he was fired. He didn't say who called him, but it wasn't Vince McMahon. It wasn't Stephanie McMahon. I mean, I wouldn't think it would be. They don't do that type of grunt work. That was always the job that went to people like Jim Ross and Johnny Ace. Let them be the hatchet man, or J.J. Dillon back in the day. Let them be the bad guy. Let them be the bad guy. I assume this time it was Mark Carrano. Carrano's the head of talent relations in the company, who called him, but he didn't say. But in this case, I don't know. I mean, you would just think that somebody who has given that many years of service, one of the longest tenured workers in your company, would at least be given a reason why. Especially after having just signed a new deal. The only time I can remember Chioda's name being mentioned publicly for any kind of issue or anything negative was back in 2011. I remember that because he was the last name I ever would have expected to be mentioned as part of something like this, but he was suspended for his first violation of the talent wellness policy. I don't know what he was suspended for. I don't believe he was suspended again after that. But that's the only time I've ever heard his name mentioned sideways in any kind of, publicly in any kind of way. But anyway, he said he doesn't know if he had heat with somebody or why he would have heat with somebody, given that he was off the road for 6 months healing up from an injury. It sounded like he was really just grasping at straws when he was talking about the heat stuff. I don't know that he had heat. I mean, I'm not backstage, so I can't say for sure that he didn't. But I don't want, people might hear that and think, oh, he had heat. Where did he have heat from? It sounded to me like he was just trying to come up with an explanation of why this happened. I think it was just a victim of cost cutting, plain and simple, right? They have a group of younger referees now that together, those two things couple, right? Cost cuts, and they have younger referees who I'm sure are not getting paid what Mike Chioda is being paid. That little bump in pay that he says he got in March, that might have been what did him in. I think it probably just boils down to that more than anything else. But he says his career is not over. He hopes to land somewhere once the pandemic stuff starts to die down a little bit. It's a good listen. He doesn't break any major ground, but there were two things. He explained why Vince McMahon suddenly banned the referees from being mentioned by name on television a few years ago. And it is a very Vince McMahon type of story. He says, I didn't get that. I believe they were saying my name too much and the referees' names too much, but it wasn't with me. It was with another referee that he did not recognize their name. And one day he was like, I guess he was looking at a run sheet or something, and he's like, who is this? Who is this person? And somebody said, oh, it's the referee. And he goes, well, God damn it, I'm done hearing this referee's name. I don't want to hear the referee's names no more. And that was it. That was it. I guess he felt they were putting the referees' names over too much. He didn't know the name, and so he's like, that's it, no more referee names. Now, since then, that obviously has changed because they have acknowledged referees on screen. But yeah, for a while there, I would say even for a few years, they just stopped naming the referees. They were just random people in striped shirts on TV. All because Vince McMahon did not recognize the name of one of the referees. And so everybody got banned. Seems rational to me. He also talked about Joey Marella, which was very cool. So for some background, Gorilla Monsoon is the one who hired Chioda in the first place to come work on the ring crew before he became a referee. Gorilla was the one who got him his gig. And he became very good friends with Gorilla's son, Joey, who worked for the company as a referee. Joey Marella was the referee for some huge matches. I mean, two of the most famous matches of all time. Hogan Andre at WrestleMania 3. And Bret Hart against the British Bulldog at Wembley Stadium at SummerSlam back in '92. Joey was the referee for both of those matches. And Joey helped Chioda in his transition to becoming a referee. So Chioda talked about all of the things that he and Joey had in common. How, they were very good friends. They both liked to fish. They both liked baseball. They both liked hockey. And they would hang out even outside the ring. They'd take a day or two. They would hang out together before they had to go back out on the road. When Joey died, they had been on the road for 17 straight days. And they were running a show in Maryland. That was the taping where Bret Hart beat Bob Backlund. It was a Superstars taping. And after the match was over, Bob just slapped Bret in the face, put him in the chicken wing, and we saw that it was really the debut of Crazy Bob. Bob Backlund's heel character was that night. And Joey worked that show. He worked that taping, and that would be his last. He wanted to go visit his mother in New Jersey. Now, Chioda and Tony Chimmel, who were traveling together, they told him, they said, hey, come with us. Ride with us. Stay with us. We'll go to the Jersey Shore the next morning. Hang out. Because they were finally coming off the road for a few days, and they were like, hey, we could all hang out together. But he said, he wanted to visit his mother, and, so it's very late at night now. The taping is over. Again, 17 straight days on the road. Just saying that sounds exhausting. I'm sure all of them were just, completely shot at that point. But he's driving with Harvey Whippleman. Harvey Whippleman is in the car with him. Joey is driving. Harvey had his seatbelt on. Joey did not. And Joey dozed off behind the wheel, which is not hard to imagine, given how long those tapings were, 17 straight days on the road, which was commonplace. That kind of thing was commonplace back then. He fell asleep at the wheel, and they got into a single-car accident on the New Jersey Turnpike, right by the exit where his mother lived. Whippleman survived. He was hurt pretty badly, but he was wearing his seatbelt. He survived. Joey did not. Chioda said that he and Chimmel drove past the accident that night. They had no idea at the time that it was Joey. Chimmel said to Chioda, hey, take a look at this. There were cop cars everywhere, fire trucks, probably ambulances. When you see a major accident on the highway, we've all seen horrible traffic accidents. Everybody slows down and rubbernecks. They have to look over and see what's going on. And they did the same thing. They kind of slowed down. They're looking over, but they did not know that Joey or Bruno, Harvey Whippleman, were involved in the accident. And it wasn't until 6:30 the following morning that he found out Joey had died in that accident. And it was Gorilla Monsoon who called to tell him. Imagine that phone call. God. Gorilla was the one, he just lost his son. But he probably knew how friendly they were, and he was the one to call Chioda and give him the news. That's awful. That's awful. A lot of people have said, Monsoon was never the same after Joey died. And, I'm sure a lot of parents would feel the same way after losing a child. It's a horrible thing. But Chioda said he would like to see Joey one day honored in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if Joey Marella is honored in other wrestling halls of fame. He doesn't have to be honored this goes to the whole thing about the WWE Hall of Fame. And, there's a lot of people who, deserve to have their day in the sun and be honored and all that. But I don't get bent out of shape anymore about the WWE Hall of Fame because the whole thing is just a joke. But he would like to see Joey acknowledged in some way. He would like to see Joey Marella become maybe the first referee even to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, because right now there are none. And Chioda said he's not sure that we'll ever see a day where a referee is inducted into their Hall of Fame. So I would say if they were going to do it, Chioda is one who also definitely deserves to be recognized. And you could add to that list Tommy Young and Earl Hebner, who was actually trained by Tommy Young, since we're talking about referees being inducted into the Hall of Fame, which they should be. They should be. The importance of the wrestling referee does not get enough attention. I don't think referees get enough credit. I really don't. And that was part of what he talked about in this interview, which was fascinating to hear somebody with his experience talk about it, that you've got three people. In a singles match, you've got three people in that ring. It's the two wrestlers and the referee, and the referee plays a vital role in keeping things together, feeding cues and information from one wrestler to the other, or from the back to the wrestlers. Sometimes they'll take bumps. They have to be positioned in the right place. Sometimes they factor into the finish of a match. These are all very important things that I think people just take for granted. I'm the same way. Look, I used to play, when I was younger, I used to play those old WWF video games like Royal Rumble and Raw. And I would take great pleasure in punching the referee in the head and knocking him down. I had no respect for authority back then. Don't be like me. Respect the referee.